Welcome again to DAD-ology. We're still doing this, and I still don't know what it is, but it's happening, and I'm really, really psyched to have you all here. This week, in the lead up to Father's Day, I thought we would do a special kind of DAD-ology, and we can talk about fatherhood. It's actually, I don't know if we talk about fatherhood enough. And maybe more on that in a bit. But for me, I grew up, I had a mom and a dad. They're both still alive. My dad was a public school teacher for the city of Brookline. And we grew up in the suburbs just outside of Boston. And he's a great dad, still is, still with us, and still dadding. And the interesting thing for me was that I didn't grow up with a father that was in the arts, although he was a very creative guy. Hey guys, I'm just gonna wave. But I didn't know anyone that was both an artist and a father or a parent, and I didn't know if that was possible when I started out. And I knew about the stereotype of the kind of like male rock and roller troubadour traveling around, can't tie him down. As soon as things get too intense or too much of a commitment, he's going to leave and be off to the next town. And I just didn't want any part of that. So, all right, Josh sent the request. Good. So I didn't know it was possible to be a dad and be a singer-songwriter/musician, but it turns out it is. And I have today as my guest to help me through this show, someone who has also figured it out and is an amazing father and a very great friend. If you don't know, today's guest is my friend Josh Ritter, who is, as a songwriter, I don't think he needs any introduction. He's one of my favorite songwriters and has been for quite some time. And I'm just so grateful that he decided to join us here today. And I am going to ask him to come in now and see if this works. Turn that volume up. We're waiting for Josh. So I think.
How's it going, buddy?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. Oh man.
Good to see you.
It's been, we got rid of all the mirrors in the house,
Solid.
How's it going?
Just like you until like 3 days ago. I got my haircut.
Great.
Oh man, yeah, it's great to see that smile. I've seen it on the streams and stuff on your thing, but it's good to see you here.
Yeah.
How you holding up?
Oh, we're taking every day as it comes, and there's good days and there's long days, but we haven't, we're just we're keeping going by the light in front of us,
Yeah.
How about you? How are you doing?
We're doing all right. Yeah, you can see I'm in like my father-in-law's house on Cape Cod in his like foyer right now. You might be able to, hopefully the cars in the background aren't too loud, but yeah, we're just kind of making every day up as it comes. And that seems to be the strategy for a pandemic, but it also just seems to be an apt metaphor for fatherhood in general. Like, let's see what happens today. Or you can break it down further. Like, let's see what happens this afternoon. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just so we can give people some background here. So, you've got 2 daughters, right? And what are
yes,
they
I do.
now?
I've got Beatrix, who's 7, and Moxie, who is 2.
2. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how old B was. Right. And they're kind of, before they came along, like how ready did you feel? Like some people are like raring to go, it seems like, but and moms have like 9 months to kind of really feel the impending oncome of motherhood, but fathers sometimes I don't think are as prepared. Did you feel at all prepared for what was about to happen?
Well, no, I didn't. I had no sense of. I was like, Before we decided to have B was I was definitely nervous. All those things are I found that I was I felt like ill prepared in every way,
Yeah.
and I didn't feel like I understood. I didn't feel like I understood babies, and I felt like yeah, and I felt like they probably didn't understand me very well, and I just didn't. I worried about my ability to be a dad, to make the right sorts of choices in the spur of the moment that you need to be able to make as a dad. I thought like, or as a parent, and I worried about that. I worried about all kinds of things. I worried, I pictured us, in chaos and destitution, and immediately, and all because of my own inability to, change a light bulb or do things that were very useful, in an everyday sense. I love writing songs and I love writing and everything, but I have trouble with a lot of things that would make me handy, in a crisis.
Now, your father still alive?
Yes, he is. Yeah, yeah. My dad is rocking it. He and my mom live out in Idaho, and are just
He was a
are
teacher too, right?
what was that?
He was a teacher as well, or is he still a
Yeah, he's a professor. He was trained as a veterinarian and became a researcher and teacher, and was is like an amazing mind. He's so broad. He loves so many different things and has so many interests.
I
It's
can't
a
believe I've not met him. Someday I want to meet. I want to meet the Ritters.
Oh, I can't believe you haven't met them yet.
I know. I know. When this is all over, I'm basically just going to climb into the one of the bays of your bus. I don't care if I'm hired for the tour or not. I'm just going to be there.
Well, they're in love with you, man.
Were you worried? I mean, I think one of the biggest worries that everyone has, and this definitely impacts moms, because of the kind of more kind of biological, I think, thing that's happening, leading up to childbirth and afterwards. Like, you worry about like how it's going to impact your career or how you do even just how you do your work. Like, were you worried about like, will I ever find time to write a song again?
Yeah, I did. That was like, it was major. I thought writing songs was one thing. Traveling and doing the touring was another thing. I was and to be honest, that was like that was a real hindrance to me, and it became like a thing that got in the way of my writing. Just the worry, the worry of it, but luckily I was with a really, and I'm with a really amazing partner, Haley Tanner, who is like, who told me basically, what you are experiencing is the conflict of a narrative. You've been told all this time that this is not how it works, but you are going to make it work. I was like, well, I guess I'm going to make it work, and we did. We made it work. It took some welding torches and all kinds of new ways of thinking. Yeah, but it worked out.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that's so fascinating about it is that you grow up a certain way, and to you that's normal, but there's other people that grow up in different ways, and that's normal to them, and there's just so many different ways to do it. When our first son Owen came along, I have two boys, so boys and girls, like, it can be a very different dynamic. When my first son Owen came along, he seemed to be he seemed to respond very well to routine, to consistency, all the things that can be really hard to provide a kid while you're, say, touring around with a band or touring around the country doing shows. So for me, it felt like he needed to be raised kind of primarily at home. He could come out to gigs occasionally, but he wasn't going to be jumping in the minivan with me to kind of travel around to a different place with different constraints every day.
Yeah.
And that in that way, he had kind of a more conventional childhood, kind of like my own. But I've seen other parents, friends of mine, and you're, prime example of this, where they just kind of take the whole family show on the road with the rock and roll show. And it is, I've toured with you during this. It's an astonishing and beautiful thing to see. I imagine it also has its moments where it's like, I can't even believe we're trying to do this, but I'm so impressed with how you've created your own normal.
Well, thanks. It's like it is and it is like up to there's exigencies to every situation, and for instance, like B started on the road with me. Her and Haley came on the road with me when B was 3 months old. Her first gig was South by Southwest.
Oh my God!
It was amazing. It was outdoors. It was like, and I remember just we got to the venue through this crazy alley, and it was baking hot outside, and we had headphones for B, but it was loud, and it was like, and I was thinking like, well, this is going to be real interesting, like how this all works out, and over time, you the envelope for what passes for normal changes, and so that and I feel very lucky with B that she's had that kind of that wide envelope of experience, and that was just by chance that B happened to be this personality who is just really could do that really well, and Moxie is I think she's going to be a great tour kid, but because she just the way touring has happened over the last little while, she hasn't gotten to go on the road yet, but I do think that it is it's like been interesting. I've been noticing in this quarantine time that we're really good at living together in this tiny apartment, and that's because and because of all the touring that we've done, and we're kind of used to that moment.
Now I've seen a couple of the sessions, and it's interesting to me. Like, my boys are pretty shy with the live streams and stuff, but B will get, like, she'll just crawl into the background, sit on the couch, and just kind of stare.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see. Does she like that? Did she find that exciting?
She is like she's not a performer in the exuberant way, but she likes to be a part of the show,
Yeah.
She likes to be a part of the show.
Climbing on stage and grabbing a tambourine or something.
Yeah, or working the lights, She likes that.
Exactly. Do you think? I mean, has it been hard to talk to her about? I mean, Moxie's too. I guess there's a lot, less age appropriate things there as far as like a pandemic goes. I mean, even a 7-year-old, you have to talk to them in a certain way. Has it been a struggle to kind of explain, like, why the really sudden change and just how everyone is acting?
I think that there's a surface level at which kids are enormously adaptable and can run with anything, and B has her friends have moved away, and she can't see them anyway, and all this, she's stuck her in this house with this 2-year-old. There's putting up with a lot of change in her life, and we try to make it easier by being as plain spoken with her as we can be, because she's 7, and there may be and there are inappropriate topics, but certainly none of the ones that we're focused on right now. We just want to make those things as straightforward and non-confusing as possible, so she doesn't have to try and figure them out for herself, because she's already, in this house, with no other children. It must get lonely, and we don't want her to feel alone in that kind of confusion.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, I've seen the way that I've noticed this with parents of like rock and roll parents of kids that are on tour, kids that are around a lot of adults a lot of the time. That you know, you just talk to them in a different way, like in a much more adult way, and they'll talk back to you in a very mature way too. Or I've had conversations with B sometimes, and I'm like, now, how old are you? Because you're talking like 10 years older than my own to me. She's just around adults more.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Kind of straightforward way. I think that's great advice for how to talk to kids in general.
I don't want to also, there are things that she may not understand, but there are also there are subjects that should not be we shouldn't fetishize them by not talking about them.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't make them more important and then leave these glaring lies of omission in their lives because we're afraid to talk about them. It's just finding the right way to talk about them that is both, that I feel is the line, but not whether we're not to talk about them. Hopefully,
yeah, I mean,
hopefully, hopefully
right?
Hopefully, we recognize what those issues are as they come up. I don't want to
Yeah, I mean, these days they're kind of fast and furious. The biggest one now is, of course, talking about racism and seeing how do you bring that up with someone? It wasn't really talked about. With me growing up, beyond we're not racist and everyone's equal and all that stuff. And as you get older, you start to realize that there's just a certain amount of privilege implicit in that way of thinking, and that there's other kids that don't get a chance to choose whether to talk about that sort of thing, and the parents don't get a chance to choose whether to talk to them about it. It's literally a matter of life and death.
Yeah.
We live in a Boston suburb. It's not the most racially diverse place, but New York City obviously is a completely different story. How do you find yourself talking to your kids about race? Is it just something that they're around a more diverse community, and it's how do you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, to a degree that might be so, although that's not something that we would rely on. We believe that and I think that it's important for B to see that she may be an individual, but she is a member of a much wider community, and and the communities are set up in ways that are not necessarily perfect, and that in those situations it's incumbent upon her to change them. So we've been to protests, and we've tried to act out and act in, Haley and I, in the ways we would wish to pass on to B. That there's talking about stuff, and then there's also realizing your place in society is one that calls for action when you see these sorts of injustices. And I have to say, we have not always had these conversations, and I feel bad about that. But we are having them now, and we're trying to learn, and we're trying to do better. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's like talking about not having those conversations. I mean, I think in a lot of cases, it's just a combination of either not feeling like you have the language to really unpack that really complex topic, and also I think there is the best of intentions behind some of the willingness or the hesitancy to not go there.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, especially now, I used to turn the radio down all the time if I was listening to NPR. I would keep it really low. I don't want I didn't want my 4-year-old saying like, "What's genocide?" I just heard them say that word on the radio, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
now that there's, you know, real fundamental challenges to our you know, democracy and to you know, racial equality, I find myself leaving the radio up more.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the boys will walk through the room and I'll think like, well, maybe they don't even seem to be listening. And then like a couple hours later, Owen, my oldest, said to me recently, he said, it seems like we've heard about these sort of incidents happening before. Like, if this isn't the first time this has happened, why are people so mad now?
Yes.
And I was like, wow, okay, you know, this is like fatherhood moment here. Like, you know, so you can't sidestep a question like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and so we talked about context, you know, both the context of the pandemic with everyone kind of maybe having a little more mental bandwidth to kind of, uh, you know, get engaged. And we talked about, you know, the actual incident. And we talked, you know, just kind of more frankly than I think I ever had before about it. And then a couple of days later, we had a chance to take him to a local protest, which was really great. It felt like there's so many things that of the way that I was raised that I would say like I want the exact same thing for my children. And then there's other things where it's like I think they have the best intentions and everyone's doing the best they can, but we know more now, you know, and we know more about how like being not being a racist is not as good as being actively anti-racist, you know. And so I'm kind of shifting with the boys to that kind of mentality is like, you know, how do you engage, give them the tools to ask these questions and to engage and to call things out when they see things that, you know, that aren't right. If it feels not right, it's probably not right, you know.
Well,
um,
and we're being asked these questions by children, and they are real questions that deserve real answers. And if we don't have the answers, then it's our job to learn about it. And
and
yeah,
yeah,
I
and
think
also be honest too. Like I don't know if you'd agree. Like it's also important to be honest when you don't have the answer.
yeah, yeah.
Um, you know, I grew up thinking that adults knew everything. And I remember when I was, you know, about to become a father, I thought, I mean, we kind of delayed it in a way, like we wanted to become parents, but, you know, we maybe financially weren't, or in our lives, we weren't in a place where we wanted to be stable as we wanted to be. And I also felt like, well, I should just know more. I don't, adults know everything. I don't know everything yet. So I can't be ready. And then
Totally.
I realized, like, once you kind of dive in, like, you don't know, but we don't know
Mm-hmm.
everything. Adults don't know everything. And I think it's important to be honest with kids about that too, in a way that doesn't sow, you know, complete panic and fear, but just, you know, kind of matter of fact, as you were saying before, just like, you know, I don't always know the best. I'm
Yeah,
trying,
yeah, yeah.
trying the best I can. I've got the best intentions, but I may not make the right decision or know exactly what to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
That's
crazy.
we talk about
But
that a lot. We talk about that a lot with B these days, especially because we're just saying like in terms of like kind of pandemic times, we're making it up as we go along, and there's some times when we're just like you just got to do your best. You do your very best, and you admit that you don't know what is always happening. But
yeah,
you're
it's so
yeah.
funny.
So,
I try to have little questions like in case I get lost and don't know what to say anymore. And I try to have little questions. And you know, one of my questions here was like, you know, any advice for new fathers? You know, but like what we're talking about right now seems like so pertinent to that.
oh man, yeah. Well, yeah, I think I agree with you. I thought that that was one of the things that I thought that something would. It was almost like when I was married, I felt like that there would be a knowledge that would settle upon me. Like some sort of shroud. I would just be covered in I would be covered in this new knowledge and wisdom, and that was all just like turned out to totally be not true. it was still just as confusing as ever. And if possible, it expanded my circle of unknowing, you know. And children do that too, you know. Like you say, like there's you know, just the simplest question is very difficult to answer, and to answer in a way that feels right, but you're giving it you're giving it your best shot, you know. You're trying
totally.
Try to lead by example.
You know what's an interesting thing to think about here. Like, I think for anyone that's familiar with my work, I've written a lot about my kids. I'm about to get walked in on here. Oh, this is my father-in-law filming us. uh, you know, I think anyone that's followed my work can see the point, like, where I started to have kids. Like, they show up in my songs, whether it was trying to envision a world that I wanted them to be, to grow up in, or whether it was songs directly about them. I personally, I didn't see a lot of that, or to the kind of similar degree with you. Do you feel like fatherhood changed your songwriting in any way? Not just like, yeah, I had my son, I had to work in a different way, but topically, do you feel like it changed your songwriting?
I think it made me more empathetic. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, but I don't. You know, I was also like, I think it really, what it really did was made it changed how I wrote and where I wrote and what I wrote, and in that way I think maybe, you know, the end product ends up being different, you know. I mean, just like how you change one little thing in making bread and you get something else, you get biscuits or whatever, you know. Mm-hmm. Like, and it feels that way a little bit with the songs, because, you know, when I first had B and my hands were full, and I was like, really, you know, with the second child, it's different. You're already juggling, you know. But like the first time, when that world kind of got exploded, I realized that really I had to write kind of in my head, you know, and like the real joy was like gonna come from like of creating and writing was not gonna come from sitting down at a desk with a pen and a pencil, you know, a pen and a piece of paper or whatever. And yeah.
Can we go back to that empathy thing? Because I think that's a really interesting insight. Like, I think kids totally break open your heart and kind of open you to the joy and the suffering of the world. You can't help but, once you have kids, you can't help but view any other event that you see as like, well, that's somebody's kid. Like, that's somebody's kid who fell asleep in a Wendy's parking lot and got shot by the police. You know, that's somebody's kid who is out there, you know, marching for, you know, LGBT rights, or that's somebody's kid. You know, you can go the other way. Like, that's somebody's kid who is, you know, at a counter protest or something. You can try and find the humanity there. And that extra empathy, I mean, that's the songwriter's stock and trade. Like, when I hear a new song of yours, people should check out a song like The Gospel of Mary, like a newer song of yours. Like, I hear fatherhood, I hear parenthood in that song. In exactly the way that you're talking about, in that kind of intense empathy with the people in that song, the refugees in that song. I mean, that's
so interesting. Yeah, that's true, and I wouldn't have thought that. But you're so right. I mean, you're so right. Once you're, I remember, like, I was playing music once with someone, and they were saying, you know, your world is gonna get so much, like, broader, and your musical world is going to get so much broader once you stop thinking you're the only one in it. and I thought about that, like, as a way of saying, you know, it exploded my, you know, having kids exploded, like, the carefully constructed, like, life that I had and took all those things and moved them to the side. And what I remember most about that first, you know, first day of B's life was feeling like I was coming around a corner and about to meet somebody for the first time. you know, and there's a powerful experience to like have that, like to have that sensation of expectation and excitement wash over me, you know, in such a way. And you know, yeah, I think, but as soon as you start cueing into the world around you rather than your own innermost turmoils every day, then suddenly the range of stories widens, and you're able to like really enjoy the beauty of all those different emotions when you're writing.
That's a great way to put it. I mean, because that mirrors what I felt, which is that like I am really proud of everything I've ever done, and I love all my records, and everything I was doing was 110% at the time I was doing it. But I see a real break in my work between, say, 2006 when Hope and Other Casualties came out. Like we would have been either expecting Owen or starting to think about starting a family, and everything after that, versus before that, it was this fatherhood was like this inflection point. It wasn't that the songs from before then don't matter or they don't mean anything or they aren't good. I don't play a lot of them because it feels like it really changed me as a person. Like I feel like I was a different person for some of the reasons that you're explaining here before that, and then after that, I became a different person once I was a father, and so the art was different.
Yeah.
It feels to me like a very hard break.
Yeah, it's like definitely a profound rewiring of your brain, like cataclysmic, like and not like in a way that's like I can appreciate it now. Wow. That was intense, you know. those first couple months while you're but yeah, so I agree with you. It must do something that like but the great thing is that it didn't do what I thought it might, which is obliterate that weird compulsion that I had to write, you know, which is my thing, and so luckily like that wasn't like it just gave me a larger palette to work with. You know?
I was hoping it might just like kind of slow you down just a little bit to give the rest of us a chance to catch up, but that was not my experience. I hot on your heels. Yeah, man. Well, I mean, this is great, and of course, all of this goes for motherhood, all this and more for motherhood. Yeah. That's a whole. I miss the momology date. I shall have to keep this going.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But it's funny how little I talk with. I don't do a lot of talking about fatherhood. I do a lot of talking about parenthood. Mm-hmm. And I feel like maybe that's because in our marriage, like the gender roles are not the gender stereotypes, I guess, are not so clean cut as maybe they were in the past. I changed all the diapers. I do the dishes. I do the laundry. I was home with the boys at first. I mean, so I don't talk about like fatherhood in a way like I do parenthood, and so it's been really interesting to kind of hear your thoughts on fatherhood specifically. I guess. To go out here, let's circle back to that. Do you have any new fathers in your life now? Do you know anyone that's about to expecting?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, totally. Right. Yeah, I got some friends who are expecting.
Have you shared have you talked to them about this? Like, is there anything you can share? Any wisdom?
My personal feeling, and the thing that I've noticed that I noticed when I was like when I was expecting like this, was that people were so dads and like parents. I don't know if they meant to be, but they came off so negative often, and they so what I try and do is just be as like positive about it as possible, because the positivity is like I found was like when I was like in that moment of kind of looking around and being like, so what's going to happen, like this is exciting, right? And everybody's like, yeah, but I want to be like tell, this is like, it's exciting. Your life is about to change. It's about to change in ways that you have no idea. And like that's you may feel like you're in like a in a lonely place in that situation, but you're going through one of those great human moments.
Yeah, man. Right. To amplify that, Lori McKenna, who knows a thing or two about parenthood, having 5 kids of her own, she said to me, because I was feeling very much like people were saying kind of negative things like, oh, you're not going to have time for this, you're not going to be able to do that. And Lori said to me, you're not going to believe how much bigger your heart can get, but it's going to get so much bigger when the kids come along. And maybe that's a good place to go out on DAD-ology is with a word of wisdom from a mom.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah,
man.
They're the best.
Thanks for doing this with me, Josh. And
thank you so much, man. Thank you. It's so good to see you, man. So good to see you.
Stay healthy and take care of those girls, and say hi for me. And
say hi to Polly and me.
All right.
Yeah. See you well, man. Take care.